My name is Bing. I graduated from the College of Arts and Sciences with a creative writing major, which for you parents who just had an allergic reaction to that, I'll explain why you shouldn't in a second. I came to Penn, I think in contrast to my two very formidable people sitting next to me, knowing exactly what I wanted to do. I'm one of, I'm sure many of you are as well, who wanted to be the first Asian president of the United States of America. Was wildly pure, worked in the state government as a high schooler, so forth and so on. In 5 years, I knew I'd go to Harvard Law. 5 years later, I'd get married to a brunette. We'd have children 2 years later. I'd run for city council, be governor of California, and it would all play itself out. And again, I'm sure many of you in this room are of the same pedigree. And I came to Penn, again, taking a very regimented course, had color-coded walls in my room, and strictly political science. And my mother was, of course, pleased with this because her little Chinese boy would be the next president, and every mom wants to say that. But things started to change sophomore year, and this was because of two things. One was because we had, and I'm going to get killed for saying this, but we are forced to take certain requirements that are outside of our comfort zones. And for my brethren among you, I hate science. I have an absolute allergic reaction to it, no offense, John, but I'm not good at it. My mind does not work that way, and any chance I can get to avoid it, I will at all costs. Unfortunately, and you'll see in a second, but fortunately, we are required to take a science course during your duration at Penn. And so I decided to take psychology because that's the least sciencey thing you can take. And at the time, psychology was taught by Dr. Chate, who literally changed my life. Psychology ended up being one of my core passions. It not only helps you understand how people behave, but more importantly, how you can be effective with other people. And there's a string of conversations there. But more importantly, I also discovered something called English, which again, as I alluded to earlier, for my two parents who are very successful conservative Asian financiers, there was a visceral reaction, something to the tune of, ugh, to English. And I took it for two reasons. One was because, and I'll elaborate on this in a second, but one was because I had always loved writing, but more importantly than writing, I was fascinated by the point of genius that happens all around us. Specifically, I'm someone who cries in movies. I'm someone who goes to an amusement park and absolutely loves the fact that Disney can make anyone smile at all times. And all of these things come from stories and come from writing, and that is absolutely something that English engenders. But I never pursued it seriously because I was simply afraid. So I needed a little more validation. And so in comes the second piece during my sophomore year that really inspired me. There's a gentleman named Rich Ross who has come back to the college for the last 19 years because he loves the school and absolutely believes in what it cultivates. Rich is currently the chairman of Walt Disney Studios. In other words, Toy Story 3, Pirates of the Caribbean, any movie that you see, and frankly, anything that comes out of that company is greenlit by him. And Rich was an English major and an international relations major when he was at the college. I think graduated in the late 80s. But Rich came and spoke, and without speaking for him, emphasized the criticality of majoring in something in the liberal arts. And so immediately that evening, I went back home and called my mom and said, "Mommy, look, I can have a real job too and be in a really sexy company." And of course, her visceral reaction was, "That's only one example." But as I think John and Ruth are perfect testaments to this, these exceptional examples, when you start extending them to people like Stacy Snyder, who is chairperson and CEO of DreamWorks, when you extend it to people like John Legend, who majored in college in English, when you extend it to people like Mark Cronin, who creates all the quality programming on VH1, when you extend it to people like Elizabeth Banks, who also majored in English in the undergraduate school in the college, and is now hailed in many camps as the next Audrey Hepburn, you start to see that the exceptional paradigms start to become closer to the standard than outliers. And so that, and the fact that they were so loyal to the college, really has told me that maybe not only was there a possibility for me to get a real job, but to have a real career in an industry that I'd always been fascinated by and always wanted to enter, but was too afraid to think about. And so the long story short is I ended up interning at Disney twice because of Rich Ross and because of my English major. Fast forward to last year when we were all hiring and everyone's scrambling to get an investment banking or consulting job, and a little company called Google came knocking on the door. And I applied and was the only person at this school to be given an offer in their executive management program. Is there anyone here at Google? Are there any Googlers here? No? Okay. So the bottom line is the goal is to train the future leaders of industry in this. And I mentioned this not to impress any of you, but to impress upon you that The English major and the breadth of opportunity that Penn, and specifically that the College of Arts and Sciences, whether it be through the knowledge base and the professors that I could interact with, the insanely loyal alumni, those things contributed to the fact that I was the only person at this school accepted into this program and now lead a global team with a multi-million-dollar budget at 23. And again, this is to impress upon you that there is no single path to getting to where you want to be and being wildly successful as these two people here are. And most importantly, that you should absolutely not be remiss to being open and exploring very aggressively and deliberately while you are here.